On this episode, we talk about cloud and how it changes everything. This show is for everyone working at the coalface. Digital, business, marketing, social. This is At the Coalface with your host, Jason Greenwood. Welcome everybody, I'm Jason Greenwood, and this is episode 7 of At the Coalface. We're going to talk about cloud, SaaS, all those technologies that you keep hearing so much about, the new latest trends, the buzzwords, the technology references, the name brand vendors, and we are going to cut through the hype and the hyperbole of what's going on in the industry, and we're going to start to break it down. We're going to start to dissect how this cloud thing will impact you, will impact your business, will impact everything that you do, personally and professionally. First things we have to do is we have to differentiate, or we have to decide and agree on, I guess, a standardized definition of what cloud or SaaS. SaaS simply stands for software as a service. We're going to talk about what that definition of that really is, because unless we have an agreed definition or a standard, it makes it really, really difficult to set the context for this discussion so that everybody is understanding what we mean and what we're discussing today. So when I mention, or when I say the word cloud, or when I talk about software as a service, I'm talking about software platforms, software applications that were born in the cloud, or were cloud native, or were SaaS native. What does that mean? It means that we didn't take a software application that was self-hosted or hosted by you internally as part of your business, and then you decided to stick it in Amazon Web Services cloud, public cloud infrastructure, or you decided to stick it in a data center that wasn't managed by you, but it was managed by a managed service provider who offered cloud services. That is not cloud. That is cloudizing self-hosted software. I'll give you examples of this type of software. In the e-commerce space, Magento is probably one of the most well-known self-hosted, non-cloud, non-SaaS e-commerce platforms in the world. When we look at ERP systems, SAP or SAP is probably the most well-known ERP system in the world that is self-hosted. When we look at other technologies, when we look at Microsoft Office software, the traditional software, not 365, not some of the other quote-unquote cloud variants that have come along. When we talk about the Microsoft Office that you install on your computer, you write documents, and then you email those around to your friends and colleagues. That is a self-hosted application that's hosted directly on your own computer system. When we look at various other technologies throughout the world, when we look at let's take the example of financial software or accounting software. Some of the most popular, one of the most well-known software packages for accounting that is self-hosted is MYOB, or Mind Your Own Business. There's various other platforms and technologies that are self-hosted as well. Almost every piece of software that you've used traditionally and historically has been self-hosted, whether it be on your own individual computer or machine, where you had to install that piece of software, that program on your own individual computer or laptop, desktop, whatever the case may be, or whether it was a software application that you use company-wide or organization-wide that was self-hosted on internal servers inside your business, that then everybody in the business could access, or as I stated earlier, that was hosted in a data center or in AWS and a public cloud sort of infrastructure. When we talk about true SaaS products, or when we talk about cloud products, we're talking about pieces of software or applications that you never have had to install, that they have always, since their genesis, since their beginning, were designed from the ground up for you not to have to install, for you not to have to maintain, and for you not to have to update yourself. Pieces of software in terms of social, something that would be very common, or I guess everyone would know about, would be all of your social media platforms. So you don't install Instagram on your computer, you don't install Facebook on your computer, you don't install Twitter on your computer. You use all of these software platforms remotely through your web browser, and the vendors of these platforms maintain them, they update them, they secure them, and you're always running the latest version of those pieces of software. When we look at e-commerce, some of the most popular or well-known e-commerce platforms that are true SaaS, they started out in the cloud. You don't host them yourself. You don't have to update them yourself, secure or maintain them yourself. We can look at e-commerce platforms such as Demandware at the enterprise end of the market. Hybris would be another self-hosted platform at the high end of the market. When we look at sort of the mid-market, we start to look at products such as Volusion, Shopify, BigCommerce, those types of platforms, mid-market up to enterprise, depending on which version of that cloud software you choose to buy a license for or buy a subscription to. When we look at ERP software and business management software, as I said before, SAP or SAP is probably one of the most well-known self-hosted products on the market, as is Exonet and a few others. ACPAC, some of the others like that verge and split their allegiance or their specialization between accounting, finance, and ERP functionality. When we look at cloud or SaaS versions of ERP software / CRM, business management software, we're looking at platforms such as NetSuite. And when we're looking at content management platforms and CRM platforms specifically, and marketing automation platforms, we're looking at platforms such as HubSpot. We're looking at platforms that were truly in the cloud, born in the cloud, and engineered from the ground up to be in the cloud, or SaaS, software as a service products. Now, one of the key differentiators between SaaS products and their self-hosted counterparts is the fact that SaaS products are typically sold to you on a licensed subscription basis. So you typically pay a monthly fee, either for the whole software package itself and to access all of its functionality, or you pay a subscription fee per module of that piece of software, or per seat of people that are accessing that software, or a combination of those three. That's the typical billing model or the charging model for those types of software. When you pay that license or subscription fee, you're paying for the hosting of that software, you're paying for the updates of that software. So instead of having to download the latest version and update your installed version of the software, it happens transparently behind the scenes, and you always have access to the latest functionality of the latest version of that software. Some of the other benefits of that you don't have to take care of, or some of the scenarios that you don't have to look after and be responsible for, are things like PCI compliance for credit card and information security. That's the vendor's responsibility, the SaaS cloud vendor's responsibility to look after that for you. You don't need to look after other connections to other pieces of software in terms of the API and other connectivity tools that allow those SaaS or cloud pieces of software to connect to other systems to either push out information to them or grab information from them. That tool set that allows that connectivity between systems is provided, maintained, and hosted by the vendor of that software, versus having to host that yourself and maintain that yourself and develop that yourself in many instances. Once again, upgrades are a real key point and a key point of differentiation between those SaaS platforms and those self-hosted platforms. The other thing is, as I alluded to earlier, is hosting. And so part of your SaaS or your subscription fee every single month is the hosting of that software. For most self-hosted applications, the infrastructure to run those applications is not cheap. It can run into the thousands of dollars a month for, even if you run the servers in-house, then you've got to buy the hardware, you've got to maintain the hardware, you've got to upgrade the hardware over time. But if you're in the cloud and you've tried to cloudize a product that wasn't born in the cloud, such as SAP, for example, SAP, ERP, if you want to go and host that with Amazon Web Services and their public cloud infrastructure, they will look after the hardware for you, and part of your subscription fee to Amazon will cover those costs. But you are paying for those as part of your subscription to their hardware. You're effectively leasing or renting the hardware off of Amazon or another hosting company to host your application, to host your program, that you then also have to pay a licensing fee for. So you're going to pay a license fee to SAP for the application, for the right to use their software. Same as with Microsoft, with Office, or with the operating system. You're going to pay a licensing fee, and then you're going to need to host it. So those are two separate fees, two separate costs. And if you go with a managed hosting provider that's providing a managed service on top of the underlying hardware or infrastructure that's used to host your application, you're going to pay them a service fee on top of that. I'll give you an example of a scenario like that. So one of the companies that we work regularly with in Australia for hosting and managed hosting support is a company called Bulletproof Networks, Bulletproof Cloud. And they host almost all of their customers' applications, programs, and services on AWS. And then what they do is they lump their managed services layer on top of that. So they, instead of Amazon billing you, they will bill you. Amazon will bill them, and then they will on-bill you. They will tack a 30% service charge on top of Amazon's core infrastructure fees for the services that they provide on top of Amazon services. So they will do monitoring, they will do alerting, so they will track when your application is not functioning properly or it's down or inaccessible. They will work with you to get that application back up and running again, whether it requires a reboot of the servers or whatever else may need to be done. They will work with any third-party partners you may have that help to service those applications. So let's say you're running SAP, you'll have an SAP partner that helps you manage the application, and then Bulletproof will help you manage the infrastructure, the underlying hardware, and the underlying base operating system stack sitting on that hardware that hosts your SAP application. So you've got a proliferation of partners in a self-hosted environment because you have partners that will help you look after your application, but they typically will not also look after your hardware and the underlying networking infrastructure that connects you to the internet or your software to the internet. And that's where your managed hosting provider comes in, like I said, with Bulletproof. Bulletproof will charge you that 30% fee. So you add that with the underlying core AWS fee, if that's your actual host that's providing the hardware and the networking infrastructure. Then you've got your application provider service fees, so the partner that helps you install and configure SAP, for example, or SAP. And then you've got the licensing fee that you pay to SAP for the right to even use their software in the first place. Now, yes, you could host all of this and maintain all of this in-house, but either way, it's going to be a big, big cost to your business to do so. So whether you outsource that cost to partners and service providers, or whether you try to keep that in-house and run and set up and maintain your own servers to host your own software in-house with an IT manager managing all of that infrastructure and a support team to do that, that's a significant cost to your business. If we contrast that with SaaS products, all of that entire scenario that I've just described to you completely goes away. So you have a vendor that supplies that product to you on a subscription basis. Sometimes it's a service that's free in the case of obviously social networks, but for any significant or serious business management software or tool set that you would use internally within your business that is a SaaS product, the vendor, the company that wrote that piece of software and maintains it for you and allows you to access it typically via a web browser, they will maintain that software for you. They will upgrade that software for you. They will scale that software for you. That's another key differentiator, is that as you scale your business and you grow the demand on that application over time, whether that be a website that your visitor numbers and customer numbers grow and therefore the load increases on that site, or whether your business grows internally and increases the load on your ERP system, your warehouse management system, your order management system, your financial tools, your accounting packages, etc. One of the most popular accounting packages that's a SaaS package nowadays that most of you probably know about is Xero. So that's becoming a very popular alternative to the self-hosted MYOB package. When we look at point of sale software within retail stores, once again, there's this split. And historically, all of the software that runs these retail stores, their tills, their cash registers, they've been self-hosted. So the software's either been hosted within each retail store or at head office, with each retail store connecting to head office and connecting to that software system. That's all been maintained, hosted, and housed internally or on something like AWS. And once again, those infrastructure concerns start to come up, and those costs and the complexity and the team that you need to manage that comes up. Nowadays, one of the most popular POS systems, point of sale systems in retail stores that's cloud and is native cloud or native SaaS, true SaaS, is Vend. So you access the Vend software through a web browser. It's hosted by Vend. It scales by Vend. So whether you've got 5 retail stores or 500, Vend has to scale their infrastructure to be able to support not only you as a single retailer with 5 to 500 stores, but all of its entire customer base, no matter how big they may be. So as they grow and as their customer base grows, they have to grow and maintain and manage their own infrastructure. But they worry about things like security, PCI compliance, network connectivity, scaling, updates. This is something that is 100% in their court. This is their responsibility. So when I say that cloud or true SaaS changes everything, I absolutely mean it. I've been in this business for a very, very long time, dealing with all of these disparate but connected application systems that businesses need to run today. So whether that be their finance and accounting package, whether that be their ERP package, whether that be their e-commerce platform, whether that be their POS system, whether that be their CRM or customer relationship management tool. And I've seen an absolute quantum shift. Even in the last 18 months, there's been a marked shift in the marketplace away from self-hosted products to true SaaS products because of all of the issues that I've just explained. The pain of self-hosting is just going to be erased by SaaS products, true SaaS products that were born in the cloud. That's a NetSuite term. NetSuite coined the term born in the cloud. And I really like that term because I think it's very, very appropriate in describing software applications or programs that started in the cloud, were always in the cloud, and were always engineered to be in the cloud, as opposed to software that was cloudized by being stuck in someone else's infrastructure, stuck in someone else's data center. That to me is not true cloud. That to me is not true SaaS. That is trying to cloudize a product that was never engineered to be able to do that efficiently and effectively. And you still have, even when you do that, and when you put those self-hosted applications on somebody else's infrastructure, you still have to update them. So between versions, and that can break functionality. You still have to secure and patch them. So when security patches are released, you still have to apply them. You still have to test them. You still have to version control them. So that if anything goes wrong, you can roll back to a previous version of a known working version of the software. So there's tremendous cost and complexity even when you stick your self-hosted application in someone else's infrastructure, someone else's hardware, someone else's data center. You still have tremendous amount of responsibility to maintain that application, look after it, upgrade it, secure it, and make sure it remains functional for the wider business. So cloud truly changes everything. And from my experience over the last 5 years, particularly, and more specifically over the last 12 to 18 months, it's been my experience that most companies and agencies who are heavily reliant on self-hosted software products, whether that be as a vendor so the originators of that software, whether that be partners who help to install and maintain that software for end customers, or whether that be end customers who use that software in their business every single day, none of those three parties, in my experience, are truly ready to embrace cloud across their wider organization, because they are so wedded, and they have such a legacy investment, both mentally and emotionally, but also financially. They have such large legacy investments in these self-hosted products that they are getting beaten in the marketplace, especially the end businesses that are running these pieces of software as a core part of their business. They're getting beaten by new competitors in the marketplace who don't have those legacy investments, and they don't have to stay on those software products. So new startups today build their entire businesses from day dot completely on SaaS software. So from their project management software, to their accounting software, to their e-commerce software, to their point of sale software, to their CRM software, to every single piece of software that they use in their business, it allows them to not have the huge upfront cost of investing in infrastructure and software licenses when they don't even know how big they're going to be as a startup yet. So particularly in startup land, they have a level of flexibility that large legacy businesses simply do not have. And that's what allows them to oftentimes come to market and in a very short period of time beat their legacy competitors. So my challenge to you out there, as agencies, as partners that work with customers to implement software technology, as businesses out there trying to be efficient, trying to be competitive, trying to be agile, trying to be able to try new pieces of software, see what works. Don't be wedded to it. Turn off that subscription. Try another option. And as vendors out there, you had better get up to speed with what cloud means to you and how it's going to impact your business, because whether you realize it or not, it will impact your business. Either from without, meaning your competitors, either existing or new competitors, will be much more agile, will be much more fast, they'll have much lower costs, especially upfront, but also ongoing, because cloud and SaaS have proven out over time to have a much lower cost over time than self-hosted products, with all of the associated costs that go along with self-hosting. So my challenge to our industry, my challenge to businesses, my challenge to employees of these businesses where maybe self-hosting in the IT department is a sacred cow, is to start raising these discussions sooner rather than later. Because if you don't, it's gonna really impact your business in a really negative way. So it's better to prepare early, be able to put a transition plan in place that will allow you to vet and test alternate software that is SaaS versus maybe your current self-hosted software stack, and start to incrementally, perhaps across the business, start to dip your toes in the water. Maybe it's a new business unit that you can implement SaaS for that new business unit as a trial, as a proving ground, as a proof of concept to the wider business that this can work for the business. Maybe it's a new region. Maybe you're going into a new country. Maybe you're going into a new town. Maybe you're going into wherever. And that's a new proving ground for you. That's a test case scenario. That's a proof of concept. And maybe you can implement SaaS software in that new country, in that new region, and let that be your testing ground, your proving ground. And the reality is, I challenge IT managers out there to not look at SaaS as a threat, to look at it as a tremendous democratizer of technology, and it will free you up to have time to be able to improve the business operationally instead of babysitting software, instead of babysitting and upgrading and updating software. It will free you to be a strategic input into the business. And you'll have to roll with the punches just like the rest of us. Because I can tell you that as a Magento partner at Exceed, when we were at Exceed, seeing the absolute avalanche of demand come into the business, the change in the business, the change in demand, it was very stark. Almost every single customer that was coming through the door, and Magento is a self-hosted product. And as these new SaaS platforms started to come on the market and the pain of self-hosting was starting to hit our client base, and they were starting to just seek alternatives where all of that pain started to go away, and the demand curve just shifted very, very rapidly and is continuing to do so. And so I would challenge anybody out there that's in digital whether that be a head of digital, whether that be an e-commerce manager, whether that be a business owner, whether that be a partner, or whether that be a vendor. Take a long, hard look at yourself, at maybe some of those sacred cows in your business and some of the technology you've wedded yourself to, and make some tough decisions. Because the sooner you make those tough decisions and you put a plan of action in place, the sooner you're going to be at peace, the sooner you're going to be confident to make those decisions, and the sooner you can start working through the process of getting everybody in the business on board to that decision. Because without some strong support in the business, you're going to have holdouts that there's always, in any business, there's holdouts that people that don't like change, that resist change just because it's change, and because it means they'll have to learn some new things. It means they're going to have to get outside their comfort zone. So I challenge you to get outside your comfort zone sooner rather than later. Embrace cloud, embrace SaaS, see what it can do for your business, as I've seen it transform many, many, many businesses over the last few years. And it's not a utopia. I'm not trying to say that it is. SaaS has its own issues, but certainly significantly less issues than self-hosted platforms, pretty much universally across the board. Hope that's been helpful. Look forward to hearing your thoughts and your experiences on your shift to SaaS in your business and what it's done for you, and maybe some questions that you might have against my experiences that maybe I can give some valuable input on, especially if you're considering a shift to SaaS. Have you got any key questions that stand out to you? Maybe your bosses, maybe your CTOs, maybe your IT managers, maybe your CFOs, maybe your finance guys. Because I can tell you that SaaS, because it turns so many of the ongoing costs and even the upfront costs, it turns them from a capital cost, so from a CapEx, into an OpEx, an operational cost, which for most finance managers is highly desirable because it's much easier to budget against instead of these massive bills that come up perhaps once a year or once every 2 years. It's much easier to digest a monthly bill right from the get-go. So let me know what your thoughts are, let me know what your questions are, and I'll do my best to answer them.